Zinal sat on her couch in her small but cozy apartment in Nairobi, staring at the message on her phone. Her salary had just hit her account. For the first time in her life, it was a number that made her heart skip. Months of late nights, endless debugging, and skipped weekends had finally paid off. She couldn't stop smiling. This was her win, her proof that all the times her family called her lazy or dreamy were wrong. She wanted to celebrate quietly with her best friend, maybe order takeout and watch a movie. Just as she started to relax, a loud knock echoed through her apartment. She frowned. It was late, and she wasn't expecting anyone. When she opened the door, her stomach dropped. Standing there was her mother, with Tumalo, her brother, behind her. No call, no text, no warning. Her mother pushed past her like it was her own home, scanning the room with sharp eyes. "You live well, Zinal," she said, her tone half impressed, half judgmental. "Maybe it's time you gave back." Zinal froze for a second, her excitement fading fast. Tumalo flopped onto her couch, grinning like he belonged there. Her mother was already asking questions. How much rent she paid, how she afforded the furniture, why she didn't call home more often. Zinal tried to smile, tried to hide the knot forming in her chest. She knew this wasn't a family visit. They hadn't come to see her, they'd come for what she had. Tumalo sprawled across Zinal's couch like it was his own, shoes on the coffee table, phone in hand, laughing at something on social media. "You won't believe it," he said, smirking. "I quit my job again. The manager was stressing me out, and honestly, I don't need that energy." He said it like quitting was an achievement. Zinal looked at him, trying to hide her irritation. He'd been through at least 4 jobs in the past year, each one ending with an excuse. Before she could respond, Tumalo added with a grin, "You're lucky, sis. People like you should help people like me." Her mother, sitting straight-backed on the armchair, nodded in agreement. "He's right," she said, folding her arms. "Your brother has potential. He just needs a little push. You can pay his rent for a few months, help him get back on his feet." Zinal's smile tightened. "Mama, I've been saving for something important," she said gently. "I want to invest. Maybe even buy a house one day." Her mother raised an eyebrow. "A house? For yourself? What about your family? Don't forget who raised you." Zinal took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "I'm not forgetting, Mama. But I worked hard for this. I just want to plan my future properly." Before she could finish, her mother's tone turned sharp. "Family comes first, Zinal. You think that money will make you happy? What's the point if your family is struggling?" The room fell silent. The sound of Tumalo's phone filled the air, a video playing loudly, as if he wasn't even part of the conversation. Zinal's heart sank. The warmth she'd felt earlier that day, when she saw her paycheck, was gone. It was replaced by that familiar heaviness, the one that always came when her mother talked like this. Tumalo finally looked up and shrugged. "She's just being stingy, Ma. You know how she is. She's always been selfish." The words hit harder than Zinal expected. She stared at him, speechless. This was the same brother who used to mock her for studying too much, the same one who'd laughed when she stayed in coding boot camps while he went out partying. Now, he sat in her apartment, acting like she owed him something. Her mother sighed dramatically, shaking her head. "You see how she talks to us? Success has made her forget where she came from." Zinal wanted to scream, but instead she stayed quiet, her chest tight. She'd imagined this moment, the day her family would finally be proud of her. But instead of pride, all she saw in their eyes was expectation. The air in the room grew heavy, thick with unspoken tension. Zinal forced a small smile and said softly, "Maybe we should all rest. It's been a long day." Her mother didn't respond. Tumalo went back to his phone, and as Zinal cleared the empty teacups from the table, she realized this visit was only the beginning of a storm she didn't see coming. That evening, after dinner, the mood in the apartment shifted. The laughter from the TV couldn't hide the quiet tension building in the room. Zinal was washing dishes when her mother spoke, her voice soft but heavy with meaning. "You know, Zinal," she began, "I sacrificed a lot for you and your brother. I worked day and night, went without food sometimes, just to make sure you both had a chance." Zinal froze, a plate still in her hand. She knew where this was going. Her mother continued, her tone growing stronger with every word. "You wouldn't be where you are without me. All this," she waved her hand toward the clean, well-lit apartment, "is because I pushed you, because I believed in you when no one else did." Tumalo, lounging on the couch, smirked and said, "Exactly, Ma. She should be thankful. If it weren't for you, she'd still be struggling." Zinal felt her chest tighten. She wiped her hands slowly, then turned to face them. "Mama, I am thankful," she said carefully, "but I worked for this. I studied, I stayed up late, I fought for every opportunity." Her mother's expression hardened instantly. "And who raised you to be that strong, Don't forget, you didn't grow up on your own. You owe your family. You owe me." Zinal took a deep breath. "I don't owe anyone for my hard work, Mom. You raised me, yes, but I did this myself. I didn't sleep, I barely ate, I built this life with my own hands." Her mother's eyes flashed with anger. Don't talk to me like that. You wouldn't have had a chance without me. Don't be selfish, Zinal. Tumalo laughed quietly, clearly enjoying the drama. He leaned back and said, You see, Ma? She thinks she's better than us now. Zinal's throat felt tight. She wanted to shout, to remind them of the years they'd called her lazy, the times her mother praised Tumalo while ignoring her quiet win. She wanted to say how lonely it was growing up in a house where effort was mocked instead of celebrated. But she didn't. She stood there, holding back tears, because she knew it wouldn't matter. Her mother sat back, sighing loudly, as if burdened by Zinal's success. You've changed, she said bitterly. Money has made you cold. Zinal looked away, staring at the city lights flickering through her window. Inside, she felt that old ache, the one from her childhood, when no matter what she did, it was never enough. She'd thought growing up and becoming successful would change that. But now, standing in her own home, surrounded by the very people she'd wanted to impress, she realized something painful. Some people don't want to see you succeed, not because they hate you, but because your success reminds them of what they never achieved. She quietly said, I'm still the same person, Mom. But her voice trembled, and deep down, she knew they didn't believe her. Dinner felt endless. Zinal barely tasted the food. Tumalo had already made himself too comfortable, feet on her coffee table, TV blaring, snacks disappearing from her kitchen without asking. He even opened her laptop at one point, typing away like it was his own. You've got fast Wi-Fi, he said with a grin, not even looking at her. I should come work from here more often. Her mother sat on the couch, flipping through Zinal's magazine, making comments about everything, the decor, the dishes, even the brand of salt she used. You've really been living nicely, my girl, she said, her tone sweet but sharp underneath. Now that God has blessed you, it's time you share that blessing. Zinal forced a small smile, pretending not to feel the growing pressure in her chest. Mama, I already help where I can, she said softly. Her mother gave a short laugh. You call sending a few thousand shillings home every few months help? Your brother needs you now. Family is everything. Zinal felt her heart sink again. She excused herself quietly, stepping out onto the balcony. The cool Nairobi night air hit her face, but even that didn't ease the heaviness pressing down on her. She pulled out her phone and texted her best friend. They're here. And they want everything. For a few moments, she just stood there, staring at the city lights, trying to collect herself. She thought about the years she spent struggling to make it, eating instant noodles for dinner, walking to save bus fare, coding until sunrise. And now, the people who once called her a failure were sitting in her home, demanding the rewards she'd earned. Then she heard her mother's voice from inside, low and serious. If she doesn't agree, we'll tell everyone she abandoned her family after getting rich. Let's see how her fancy friends like that. Zinal froze. The words sliced through her like a blade. Her throat went dry, and for a second she couldn't breathe. This wasn't guilt anymore. This was blackmail. Her own mother, the woman who was supposed to protect her, was plotting to shame her if she didn't give them what they wanted. Something in her cracked. The old fear that always made her stay quiet, it was gone. She straightened her back and stared into the dark sky. For years, she'd let them control her with guilt, with their words, with their disappointment. But not this time. She turned back toward the sliding door, watching them through the glass, Tumalo laughing, her mother pretending to be innocent. Zinal felt something new rise inside her, calm but strong. She didn't know exactly what she'd do yet, but one thing was clear. She was done being their victim. That night, after her mother and Tumalo finally fell asleep in the guest room, Zinal sat on her bed in the dark, her laptop open in front of her. Her hands trembled slightly as she typed in her banking details. Every click felt heavy, but she didn't stop. She moved all her money, every shilling of her paycheck, into a private account that only she could access. Then she emailed her HR department, asking them to update her contact information and to make sure all communication went directly to her private email. She didn't explain why. She just knew she needed to protect herself. When she finally closed the laptop, the room felt quieter than ever. Outside, the city hummed with life, but inside her apartment, everything felt fragile. She lay awake for a long time, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how her own family had turned into strangers. Still, beneath the sadness, a small spark of strength began to grow. For the first time, she wasn't scared, she was planning. The next morning, Zinal woke up early and forced herself to smile. She made breakfast, eggs, toast, and tea, pretending everything was normal. Her mother joined her at the table, scrolling through her phone, while Tumalo yawned loudly and reached for the food before anyone else. Zinal, her mother began, her voice sweet but firm, I've been thinking. Tumalo really needs a car. How else will he look for a new job? You can help with that, right? Zinal stirred her tea quietly. A car, she repeated softly. Yes, her mother said, nodding. And I was also thinking, this apartment of yours is so beautiful. You could help me redecorate my place. Maybe get some new furniture, A nice TV, something decent. And of course, I'll need some cash for emergencies. Just until things get better. Tumalo grinned between mouthfuls of toast. Yes, sis. You've got enough. What's a few thousand here and there? You'll make it back in no time. Zinal looked at them both, her mother's expectant face, Tumalo's careless smirk, and felt something shift inside her. She smiled calmly and said, Mama, I'll handle everything soon. Her mother's face lit up instantly. That's my girl. I knew you'd come around. Zinal nodded and sipped her tea. On the outside, she was calm and polite, her voice gentle. But inside, her thoughts were sharp and focused. She wasn't agreeing, she was preparing. She was done letting them decide how her life should go. As they laughed and talked about what they'd buy with her money, Zinal quietly planned her next move. This time, she wouldn't argue. She wouldn't try to make them understand. She'd simply act. Because real strength, she realized, didn't always come from fighting. Sometimes, it came from walking away with your peace intact. That afternoon, the sun poured through the living room window, making everything look calm, even though Zinal's heart was pounding. She had spent the whole morning preparing herself, rehearsing every word in her head. Now it was time. She walked into the living room, where her mother was on the phone and Tumalo was half asleep on the couch. Mama, Tumalo, she said quietly but firmly. Can we talk? They both looked up. Her mother sighed, putting her phone down. What is it, Zinal? We were just getting comfortable. Please, Zinal said, gesturing for them to sit. This won't take long. They sat across from her, the air thick with tension. Zinal took a deep breath, her hands resting on the table. I love you, she began, her voice steady. But I won't let anyone take what I worked for. Not anymore. Her mother's eyebrows shot up. Excuse me, she said, her tone sharp. Don't talk to me like I'm a stranger. I'm not, Zinal said softly. But I need you to understand that my money, my work, my life, it's mine. I've helped when I could, but I can't keep giving just because you expect me to. Before her mother could respond, Tumalo slammed his hand on the table, making the cups rattle. You're just lucky, he shouted. You don't deserve any of this. You act like you're better than us. Zinal looked straight at him, calm and unshaken. Then earn your own, she said simply. Her voice was low, but it cut through the room like glass. For a moment, there was silence. Tumalo's face twisted in anger. Her mother gasped dramatically, pressing a hand to her chest. Ungrateful child, she cried. After everything I did for you, you've become heartless. Zinal didn't move. She didn't rush to comfort her or apologize like she used to. She just sat there, breathing slowly, watching them both act like victims in a story she no longer believed in. Her mother wiped her fake tears and shook her head. This is what money does, she said bitterly. It makes children forget their roots. Zinal's voice stayed calm. Money didn't change me, Mom. I changed because I was tired of being taken advantage of. Tumalo muttered something under his breath, but she ignored him. For once, she wasn't reacting. She was choosing peace. Her mother stood up suddenly, her eyes cold. You'll regret this, she said. One day, you'll need your family, and we won't be there. Zinal gave a small, sad smile. If that day comes, at least I'll know I made my choices honestly. As they stormed off to the guest room, the apartment finally felt quiet again. Zinal sat alone at the table, her hands still trembling, but her heart felt lighter. For the first time in years, she had stood her ground, and she didn't feel guilty for it. A week passed after the confrontation, and things had gone quiet, almost too quiet. Her mother and Tumalo had left, but the silence that followed didn't feel peaceful. It felt like the calm before another storm. Zinal kept herself busy at work, trying not to think about it. Then one afternoon, her phone buzzed. It was an email from HR. Hi Zinal, it read. Just wanted to confirm something. Your assistant called earlier asking for your salary details. We didn't share anything since you don't have an assistant, but we thought you should know. Zinal's heart dropped. She didn't need to guess who it was. Tumalo. Her own brother had called her workplace pretending to be her assistant to get access to her salary information. For a moment, she just sat there, staring at the screen, anger and disbelief mixing inside her. At first, she thought about calling him, maybe shouting, maybe crying. But then she stopped herself. She'd been quiet for too long. This time, she wasn't going to hide what they were doing. That evening, she opened her family WhatsApp group, the one with all her aunts, cousins, and uncles, and pressed record. Her hands were shaking, but her voice came out clear and calm. Hi everyone, she said. Since everyone's been curious about my life lately, here's the truth. Last week, my mother and brother came to my house and demanded my salary. And today, Tumalo called my office pretending to be my assistant to get my payment details. I've kept quiet for years, but not anymore. I'm tired of being treated like an ATM. I worked for my success, and I won't be ashamed of protecting it. She hit send and set her phone down. Within minutes, the message started getting blue ticks. Then came the replies, shocked emojis, long messages from relatives asking what happened. others saying they couldn't believe it. The group chat blew up. Half an hour later, her phone started ringing. It was her mother. Zinnel hesitated, then answered. Her mother's voice exploded through the speaker. How dare you embarrass us like this? Do you know what people are saying? You've humiliated your own family. Zinnel listened quietly, her pulse racing. You brought this on yourself, Mama, she said softly. Her mother screamed louder, blaming her, twisting every word into guilt. But this time, Zinnel didn't argue. She didn't cry. She simply ended the call. Her hands were trembling as she placed her phone on the table, but she felt something she hadn't felt in weeks: freedom. She sat back, staring at the city lights outside her window. For so long, she'd carried the weight of their expectations, their guilt, their manipulation. Now it was all out in the open. No more hiding, no more pretending. They could call her selfish, cold, or ungrateful. She didn't care anymore. For the first time in her life, Zinnel had chosen herself. Weeks went by, and the silence grew louder. No calls, no messages, not even a forwarded meme from her mother. Her family had completely cut her off. At first, Zinnel felt the guilt crawl in at night, that heavy, familiar feeling that whispered maybe she had gone too far. Maybe she was selfish. She'd scroll through old photos of family gathering, hear her mother's laughter in her mind, and for a second, her heart would ache. But then she'd remember the manipulation, the lies, the threats, and the ache would fade. Slowly, the quiet began to feel different, peaceful. Her apartment, once filled with tension, now felt like hers again. She could work late without judgment, eat cereal for dinner, or dance around barefoot while coding at 2 a.m. For the first time in years, she wasn't walking on eggshells. With her savings untouched and her focus sharper than ever, Zinnel decided to do something meaningful. She rented a small space in town and started a tech training center for girls, a place where young women from Nairobi could learn coding and digital skills for free. It started small, just a few laptops and a handful of students, but it grew quickly. Word spread, and soon local media picked up her story. From self-doubt to success, how Zinnel is empowering the next generation of women in tech, one headline read. When she saw the article, Zinnel smiled, not with pride, but with quiet satisfaction. She wasn't chasing approval anymore. She was building something that mattered. One evening, after a long day of training her students, Zinnel came home, made herself tea, and sat on the balcony watching the city lights. Her phone buzzed on the table. The name on the screen made her freeze, Tumalo. For a moment, she considered ignoring it, but something told her to answer. She picked up, her voice calm. Hello. His voice was shaky, different. Zinnel, hey. It's me. I know, she said softly. There was a long pause before he finally spoke again. I messed up, sis. Things are bad. I lost my place, and I just need help for a little while. Please. Zinnel didn't say anything at first. The silence stretched between them. She thought of the night he and their mother had plotted against her, the way he'd laughed while calling her selfish. And now he sounded small, broken even. Finally, she spoke. Her tone was gentle but firm. Now you know what hard work feels like. Before he could respond, she ended the call. Her hands trembled slightly, but she didn't cry. She wasn't angry anymore, just done. As the city buzzed below her, Zinnel leaned back in her chair and looked up at the night sky. For years, her family's noise had drowned out her own voice. But in the silence, she'd found something stronger than forgiveness. She'd found peace. Months passed, and life finally felt steady again. Zinnel's training center had grown beyond what she imagined. The room was always full, girls typing, laughing, asking questions, and discovering the same spark that had once driven her. Every day felt like purpose. Every success story reminded her why she'd chosen peace over guilt. One warm afternoon, Zinnel was helping a student fix a line of code when she noticed someone standing quietly by the door. At first, she didn't recognize her. The woman looked smaller, her shoulders slouched, her face lined with exhaustion. But then Zinnel's heart stopped. It was her mother. She stood frozen for a moment before walking over slowly. The room went silent as the students watched. Zinnel gave them a small smile and said, "Take a short break, girl." When they stepped outside, she turned to her mother. "Mama," she said softly. Her mother looked around the bright, busy space, eyes filled with something between pride and sorrow. "You've built something beautiful," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't realize how much you'd achieved." Zinnel didn't reply. She just nodded, waiting. After a long pause, her mother sighed deeply. "I didn't come to ask for money," she said quietly. "I came to say, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I hurt you. I just wanted to feel included in your life." Zinnel's throat tightened, but she stayed calm. "Mama," she said gently, "you had a daughter who wanted love, not money. I wanted to make you proud, not feel owned." Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "I thought I was doing what was best. I just didn't want to be left behind." Zinnel nodded slowly. "I understand that. But control isn't love, Mama. You can't guilt someone into caring. I needed support, not pressure." The words hung in the air, heavy but honest. Her mother looked down, wiping her tears with the edge of her scarf. "You've changed," she whispered. "I had to," Zinel said softly, "because I couldn't keep living for everyone else." For a long moment, they just stood there, two women from the same family, separated not by distance but by pain and pride. Then her mother took a shaky breath. "I'll go now," she said, turning toward the door. Zinel didn't stop her. She simply watched as her mother walked away, her steps slow, her figure fading into the sunlight outside. There was no anger left, only a quiet understanding that this was the end of their old story. When the door closed, Zinel looked around her center again, the computers humming, the walls lined with photos of her students. A deep calm settled over her. She knew her mother's visit wasn't about reconciliation. It was closure. For the first time in years, Zinel felt completely free, not from her family, but from their hold on her heart. The afternoon sun poured through the big windows of Zinel's training center, painting everything in warm gold. She walked slowly between the rows of desks, watching her students, young women typing confidently, laughing softly, helping one another debug lines of code. Each face reminded her of where she'd started, scared, uncertain, but full of hope. As she paused to help a girl struggling with a project, Zinel caught her reflection in the glass. The woman staring back wasn't the same person she used to be. She was calmer now, stronger. No longer the frightened girl who once begged her family to see her worth. No longer the one who stayed quiet to keep the peace. Her students' laughter echoed through the room, and for a moment, she just stood there, smiling. This, not the paycheck, not the success, was what all those sleepless nights had led to. A space where women could dream boldly without fear. In her heart, Zinel heard the words she'd been too afraid to say for years. "They thought money made me powerful. But what really made me strong was saying no." Later that evening, she closed up the center and stepped outside. The Nairobi sky was streaked with orange and pink, the city humming softly below. As she walked home, the warm breeze brushed against her face, carrying the sound of life. Distant music, laughter, and traffic, all blending together. She felt light, at peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because she finally understood her own worth. Zinel smiled to herself as the sun dipped below the skyline. She didn't just earn her salary, she earned her freedom. And this time, no one could take it away.